In a tiny wooden cabin, nestled on the edge of a vast, whispering forest, lived a poor woodcutter with his two children, Hansel and Gretel, and their stepmother. Times were incredibly tough. There was never enough food, and a bitter wind would sneak through the cracks in their walls, chilling them to the bone. One evening, huddled under their thin blankets, Hansel and Gretel pretended to be asleep. They heard their stepmother's sharp whisper to their father, "There isn't enough food for all of us. Tomorrow we must take the children deep into the forest and leave them." The woodcutter's heart ached, but the gnawing fear of starvation was stronger than his protest. Gretel began to cry silently into her pillow, her small shoulders shaking. But Hansel, ever the brave one, whispered to her, "Don't you worry, Gretel. I have an idea." The next morning, as the first rays of dawn filtered through the trees, the family walked into the forest. Hansel, who had snuck out the night before, secretly dropped small white pebbles behind them. They shone in the faint light like a trail of tiny moons. Just as their stepmother had planned, she and their father left them with a small fire and disappeared. When night fell, a cold fear began to creep into Gretel's heart, but Hansel just smiled. "Look, Gretel, the little stars on the ground will show us the way home," and just as he promised, they followed the shimmering stones all the way back to their cabin. Their father was overjoyed, but their stepmother was furious. The very next day, she locked the front door, her face a mask of cold determination. No more wandering off. She declared that night the children heard the same dreadful whispers. This time, their stepmother said, "We'll take them so deep they'll never find their way back." Hansel tried to get more pebbles, but the door was bolted shut. He was left with only the small, stale piece of bread from his dinner. So the next morning, as they were led even deeper into the woods, he broke his bread into tiny crumbs and dropped them along the path, hoping they would guide him and his sister home. But when darkness fell and they were alone once more, a terrible realization hit them. The crumbs were all gone, eaten by the hungry forest birds. Lost cold, and with their stomachs rumbling, the two children wandered aimlessly. They walked for what felt like days, their hope dwindling with every step. And then, through the dense trees, they saw it a sight so wondrous it couldn't possibly be real. It was a small cottage made entirely of sweets. The walls were gingerbread, the windows were clear spun sugar, and the roof was covered in glistening chocolate, dripping with honey. "Let's eat," Gretel cried out, her fear momentarily forgotten in a rush of delight. They ran to the house and began to nibble. But just as they took their first bite, the door creaked open. An old woman, with eyes as sharp and cold as glass, emerged. "Oh, you poor dear children," she cooed in a sickly sweet voice. "Come inside, come inside. You must be absolutely starving." The inside of the house smelled of warm cinnamon, baking cakes, and a strange, hidden secret. But this was no kindly old grandmother. She was a wicked witch who built her candy house to lure children in, only to cook and eat them. The next morning, her sweet demeanor vanished. She grabbed Hansel and threw him into a small cage, locking it tight. She then forced Gretel to be her servant, making her cook and clean from dawn till dusk. Every day, the witch would go to Hansel's cage and say, "Stick out your finger. Let me see if you're fat enough to eat yet." But the clever Hansel, knowing her eyesight was poor, would hold out a small chicken bone instead. Still too thin. The witch would grumble, growing more impatient with each passing day. Finally, the witch's patience snapped. "I can't wait any longer," she shrieked. "Today I will feast on your brother, thin or not." She ordered Gretel to check the massive oven. "Is it hot enough, girl?" she demanded. But Gretel, thinking fast, pretended to be clueless. "I'm not sure," she said innocently. "How do I check, you foolish child?" The witch snapped in frustration. "Like this." She stomped over to the oven and leaned far inside to demonstrate. In that split second, Gretel gave her a mighty shove from behind, sending the witch tumbling into the roaring flames, and slammed the heavy iron door shut. The witch let out one terrible scream, and then there was only silence. Gretel quickly freed a relieved Hansel from his cage, as they explored the witch's house. They discovered her hidden treasure, chests overflowing with gold coins, sparkling jewels, and precious stones that shone brighter than any star. They filled their pockets and aprons until they could carry no more. As they left the candy house behind forever, a friendly bird began to sing, and they followed its song through the forest. The melody led them all the way back to their own home. Their father, who had been racked with guilt and sorrow, wept with joy when he saw them. He hugged them tightly, his heart overflowing with relief. Their cruel stepmother, he told them, had mysteriously disappeared into the forest and was never seen again. From that day forward, Hansel, Gretel, and their father lived together in peace and comfort, their home filled not with the witch's gold, but with the priceless treasure of love. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more classic tales. We'll see you in the next one.